Brooks, senior reporter for IndieWire, and I'm here in our IndieWire studio at Sundance, presented by Dropbox. And today I am joined by the crew from Move Ya Body, The Birth of House. I have Elegance Bratton, director, and Chester Algernal Gordon, and Roger Ross Williams, producers. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
So Elegance, you started your career with Peer Kids and then had a wonderful film with The Inspection. But what led you back to documentaries for this project?
Well, I think I have what I call cinematic dyslexia. I don't really see a difference between documentary and fiction. So it doesn't feel like I've switched gears, but Move Your Body is a real celebration. This movie is about the joy and the wonder of house music. So after The Inspection, which is a really heavy film, I needed a palate cleanser.
What was it about this music and about this era that really spoke to you that made you want to take this on?
Well, the project was brought to me by Roger, and he was like, I've got this project with Hillary Clinton because she loves house music. And I'm like, I didn't know Hillary was a househead. And, for me, house music is the soundtrack of me growing up. As a kid, the name Elegance, people always assumed that I was gay. So people were like trying to put a lot of pressure on me to be a real man. And then I snuck into the limelight in New York City, this incredible nightclub. And for the first time, those things that I was like ridiculed for or punished for became superpowers. And the soundtrack of that liberation was house music. So yes, this film is about the birth of house music, but it's also about the way that, queer people, femme people, women, that culture can teach us all how to be free.
And I was going to ask that about Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton being EPs. I had no idea, where did that come from?
It came from they have a company called Hidden Light, and the company, really, one of their partners is Sam Branson, who is Richard Branson's son. Okay. So there's the music connection. But Hillary's from Chicago. So I, when I met Hillary, I said, no one's going to believe that you're a house music lover. This is great. This is great. And she came to me, and I was thinking, who's the most incredible director to do this? Who's incredibly talented? And of course, it's Elegance. There's no one else. I found myself on the dance floor in house music, and it takes you to another place. There's a freedom with being on the dance floor in house music. And to me, it's just such a powerful, powerful film that Elegance created in Chester.
And obviously this is not your typical music doc. It immediately gets into the politics and the history of this era, the segregation laws that, were in place and how that was all, part of the history of this. But, why was it important for both of you to really frame it in that lens and really make sure people were aware of that history of segregation and everything?
Well, one of the major characters in the film is the city of Chicago. And when you speak of the segregation, the reality of the matter is, Vince Lawrence, our lead character, he created the first house song. And he was also an usher at Kaminsky Park in 1979 during disco demolition, when 50,000 predominantly white folks blew up black music. And little did they know that there would be Vince Lawrence in that crowd saving up money for a synthesizer on which he would record the first house song. So this mission to destroy black music was stymied by the fact that Vince was there. So, Chester always says pressure makes diamonds. With Chicago as the main character, I wanted to show how segregation created the perfect storm of circumstances, not only for house music to be created, but also for house music to spread around the world and become a global phenomenon, and unfortunately get appropriated. So in that regard, you couldn't have, if you're a black person who's growing up in the South Side or the West Side of Chicago at that time, you absolutely needed white collaboration to be able to transcend the limitations of the ghetto, and house music is that transcendence.
Yeah, the Disco Sucks rally, that blew my mind, the way it was framed here, and just it's staged like a horror movie, and some of these recreations that you do are really powerful. But I think, coming from Chicago myself, I feel like I had been aware of this, but maybe hadn't always seen it presented as this really racist moment. Had you observed that too, that it had been whitewashed or not really discussed in that way? What was some of your reaction, or why did you want to really, reframe that and make sure people understood, what this was about?
Well, I think sometimes it's hard to be into the skin of someone else. And I think cinema is a path towards empathy, a path towards understanding. So I do believe that for a lot of even the white folks in the crowd, they didn't necessarily understand fully what they were doing, right? But in the context of that moment of the late 70s, early 80s, we're only 10 years outside of a time when Black folks couldn't even share the same restrooms as a white person, right? So, and then comes disco, right? And all of a sudden, at the top of the charts, it's Black women, it's gay people, it's kind of like today, people were getting afraid of this diversity. And that event for Black folks was a sign of like, stay in your place. And I wanted to personify that. And ultimately, through Vince's story and having this incredible character, I'm able to talk about history in a way that's not like data or, you know, but it's more so personal.
You know, I think the interviews that you get, some of the different people, especially some of the other white collaborators, I'm amazed at some of the reactions you got. There's a few who have some colorful language, let's say,
Absolutely.
in there that they said on camera and on record. And there's conflict there. There's people disagreeing about the history here. Did that surprise you, like, to see that this fairly recent history is still pretty contested?
I wasn't surprised by it, but I think that's important, right? I'm not trying to tell people how to feel about anything. What I'm trying to do is present all of the different context of the events that led to the birth of house music. So when you're talking about the birth of an artistic genre, it's inherently messy. There is no one story, and in house music is no different. Every person I talked to claimed they invented house. You know, even though they didn't have the first record, they thought they invented house. So right off the bat, you were going to have a lot of like contradiction. So, and that's the point, right? Cinema is about tension, and that's the tension.
I mean, it's sad to see too, you know, so many like either struggling or just dead pioneers of the genre, while so many white artists, so many different people have really, you know, taken and run with it and become famous. You have that quote from David Guetta, you know, on stage at like Coachella or wherever, saying like, yeah, Frankie Knuckles was my inspiration, and like how many people in that crowd actually know who that is. Right. You know, how does the industry need to innovate and really change that pattern? You know, what do you think, you know, can be done?
I'm not sure if I have the authority to speak for the music industry. I'm not even sure what the music industry is these days, you know, in a world of like Spotify and Apple Music. But what I can say is that it's important to me that people understand where this music comes from. And now that you know where the roses can be sent, please send them. Make sure that these musicians are taken care of. Make sure that their work is acknowledged. Book them for Coachella. Book them for Glastonbury. You know, it's hard to be a pioneer, but I hope that with Move Ya Body, the birth of house, we've shown a light on this community, and everybody will, you know, run to the races to hire them and make sure that their legacy is cemented.
Let's then talk with each of you about your, you know, connections with house music, some of your favorite artists. You know, what are your memories? I'd love to just go down the line. Yeah, Chester.
Oh, wow. My connection to house. I mean, the first house song I ever heard, I was 5 years old, and it came on the radio, and it was The Percolator, actually. Yeah. It's time for The Percolator. And I remember hearing it, and I had never heard, because my mother listened to a lot of hip hop growing up and R&B music. But I remember hearing it and having this joy and just like starting to move, you know, move my body and move around. It was a wonderful feeling, but that was my first experience of house. My favorite house musician, I think, is, that's hard. I mean, I love Kate Renata, but I mean,
Best.
I mean, yeah. I also purchased the expensive ticket to Renaissance. So, you know, I also love Beyonce.
Yeah, you love Beyonce.
Who doesn't love Beyonce?
But, you know, debate it. She could be a house musician today, a rapper,
country
artist,
rock and roll.
Or who knows? That's your next album. Yeah.
Yes. You know, in high school, I grew up going to a legendary club, the Paradise Garage, listening to Frankie Knuckles. And that's where I found true freedom on the dance floor, with dancing there with Keith Haring and all these legendary, famous figures of New York nightlife. I grew up in the clubs in New York, so it's in my blood.
Yeah, for me, gosh, the first time I heard it, I think the first time I ever really knew that I was listening to house music back in the day in New Jersey, New York area, Hot 97 radio station. they would go to all the clubs in New York and film, or rather record live at the club. So they were recording at Tunnel, and I was a huge Mariah Carey fan. And David Morales did a mix of Mariah Carey's Fantasy, this like gospel house, tribal, drum driven type of thing. And it blew my mind because I loved Fantasy, and I never even, thought about that it could be in this way. And I just remember being in my room, and I was at the Limelight or at the Tunnel in my room to that song. And in terms of my favorite musician, I don't know. I really liked Junior Vasquez, the DJ. That's kind of one of my faves. He's done incredible remixes. My favorite song actually is called "If Madonna Calls" by Junior Vasquez, and it's a house beat built around. It's like at the time of Evita, and Madonna's calling Junior to do all the remixes to the songs from Evita, and he's just sending her the message. So it's all of her messages. To Junior, like, pick up, I'm here. Junior, it's me, Madonna.
Oh, that's so great.
That's my favorite
Let's
song.
play that tonight.
That's what I was gonna say. We gotta play that at the party.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this is probably the party to be at, the after party at Sundance. So, Elegance, tell us what you have coming next. What are you working on?
Sure, I am working on my next fiction film. It's called By Any Means. It's about, in the 1960s, a Black man by the name of Vernon Damer was paying for people's poll taxes so that they could vote in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. The Klan found out, burned down his house, killed him, and the FBI hired a mafia hitman by the name of Greg Scarpa to find the killer and bring him in dead or alive. My film is about the Black agent that's partnered with that hitman. And, imagine if you put Training Day, Goodfellas, and Mississippi Burning in a blender to like a Trent Reznor soundtrack, and that's the film.
There you go.
That's starring Mark Wahlberg.
That sounds fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and this is a wonderful film, and best of luck with it at Sundance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yay.